since you've been away.
DJ Payne 1.
Oh, come on.
I don't think that I'm coming back. Boy, I told you I'm done with that. You think you can do me so wrong? I'm not the one, no, I'm not the one. I don't think that I'm coming back. Boy, I told you I'm done with that. You think you can do me so wrong? I'm not the one, no, I'm not the
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome on in to the Space Cowboy Show. I'm your host, Ricardo. I hope everyone's having a great day today on this Friday, October 3rd, as playoff baseball is starting. And on top of that, I can't believe we're a month into the season already. It goes by so quick. You got to enjoy while you're still here. And once it's gone, it's gone. But we're now into October football, and the Cowboys' first opponent will be the New York Jets in the Meadowlands. It is going to be the Cowboys' first time in the Meadowlands since 2019. Ironically, this is the same time that the Jets were also 0-4, and we sort of remember how that game went, if you recall. A ton of injuries for the Dallas Cowboys on their O-line, their weapons, you name it. And we didn't win that game, even though it came down to the very end. So the Cowboys are looking to do what they haven't done in quite some time. In fact, the last time they won in the Meadowlands against the Jets specifically was 2003. Yes, that's how long ago it was that the Jets lost to the Cowboys in MetLife. So that's going to be pretty critical for the Cowboys, especially to get their season back on track. You can't fall to 1-3-1 and expect to really get anything out of it. Yes, it's an AFC opponent, so it's not going to hurt you in the NFC standings, but this is where you need to start stacking wins. They're not a good football team. However, I do think that the Jets have shown glimpses of moving in the right direction. There have been so many instances of them being close to winning several games, and they just couldn't pull through. And we'll talk about a little bit more in today's show. Before we get into it, if you guys are on YouTube, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the live streams as we're going through them and all the other videos and stuff that come out. Finally, if you want to support the channel further, you're more than happy to hit that join button. I believe you can do it on mobile now, so that's great. If you want to do that, awesome. And then also check out the other shows on the Kretschman Media Network on the home tab of the channel. If you are on Twitter/X, please make sure to hit the like, share this, follow my page, and if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can hit the link over there. So with the pleasantries out of the way, let's go ahead and let's talk about this game. So starting things off with the Dallas Cowboys side of things and their injury report, which was pretty sizable going into today. Now, for Deron Bland, he's a full go. He's had full practice. We don't have any designations for today, though, so just keep that in mind as of this recording. Tyler Booker did not participate in either of the practices, of course. He has the high ankle sprain. Kalen Carson and Trevon Diggs both limited. You then had Tyler Guyton, Malik Hooker, CeeDee Lamb did not practice. Again, some of these are pretty obvious. Some of them you might want to keep an eye out on. You then also had Jonathan Mingo and Kenneth Murray have limited practice, and then Miles Sanders, Tyler Smith, and Kevontae Turpin did not practice, and Marshawn Nealon came up on Thursday as a limited participant in practice. So the Cowboys could be looking at missing their three key guys on the offensive line. And keep in mind, Cooper Beebe isn't out there. And so you could be looking at missing four of your starting O linemen, which is pretty scary because one of the things that I talked about going into this year is that you need to build cohesion with the young offensive line. It's hard to do that with injuries. Of course, you can't help it when it happens because you never know when it's going to happen. But this is going to be a huge test for this Cowboys coaching staff because as we've seen in the Green Bay Packers game, they were still able to run the ball with the deficiencies on the offensive line and the injuries, no matter who was back there, but specifically Javonte Williams has been a godsend of a running back for the Cowboys to provide stability on the offense. And I think that for Clayton Adams, this is going to be his calling card. We saw what he could do in Arizona with an offensive line not as talented of what the Cowboys have. And I think that we're going to see a lot from this Cowboys team no matter what happens. Now, on the other side of things, we talk about, okay, now as the Cowboys are going into this game, how have they looked so far in terms of their player stats and their team stats? So Dak Prescott, as of this recording, and I could be wrong, he leads the league in passing. Granted, he only played 3 games in Stafford. He played 4 games and Stafford has played 5, so he might not lead the league in passing. But before the Thursday night game, he did. Javonte Williams has 312 rushing yards through 4 games. George Pickens leads the way with 300 receiving yards and as well as 4 receiving touchdowns. Now, I don't care about the tackles portion. Jack Sanborn's your leading tackler, but we don't care. And Donovan Wilson has the lone interception, I believe, that the Dallas Cowboys have had all season long. And I'm correct in that. The Dallas Cowboys defense has only 1 interception so far all year. And then in terms of our sack leader, I believe it's James Houston. Yes, James Houston has 2 sacks, Kenny Clark with 1, and Marshawn Nealon with 1. So the Cowboys have, I believe they also have someone has like a half sack. But my point being is you have 5 total sacks. And that's not really good, especially for a defense. Now, again, it's not like this was like after 2 games or 3. No, this is after a whole month of play. You only have 5 total sacks and 1 interception to your name. So that's not good. And I think that if the Cowboys really, really want to get back into the swing of things, they're going to need to step it up on the defensive side of the ball. Because if we can keep the offense going and we can continue to see the efficient running of what Javonte Williams has been doing, of what Miles Sanders has been doing, as much as I'm not like Miles Sanders is averaging 5.8 yards per carry. Javonte Williams on much more attempts, averaging 5 yards a carry. And, it's going to be very hard this week to really go through this game. And again, I don't want people to be surprised if the Cowboys struggle in this game versus the Jets, as historically they've not done well against the Jets up at MetLife, number 1. But number 2, they're so banged up on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense hasn't done a great job so far this year, aside from one half of football, that you need to just be prepared for the game to be closer than you think. In fact, the odds makers think that it's going to be closer than people think because the Cowboys first opened up as a 1.5 point spread favoring the Cowboys. That has since moved to 2.5 in favor of the Cowboys. So that's something going on there. The other thing too is that the over and under is at 48.5. Now, if it were me, I'm going to take the under on that, surprisingly. And I don't really particularly care for the money line. But looking at the last couple of games for the Jets, okay, the Jets, they lost against Pittsburgh in a close one. They got blown out by Buffalo. They should have beat Tampa Bay, but they didn't. And Miami, they kind of stumbled, but they recovered a little bit. So I think that the Jets are a sneaky good team, and what Aaron Glenn is doing out there is pretty impressive. Again, I'm not expecting them to be big threats this year in the totality of their season, but it does look like they're playing very good football, but it just hasn't worked in their favor. You know, we're talking about a Jets team that should be 2-2 at this point. Honestly, like they should be 2-2, but they're not. You're 0-4. So that's one. But number two, the Cowboys have struggled against mobile quarterbacks very much so in the past 10 years, even going back further. So for me, at least, as a Cowboys fan, the one thing and the keys to victory, I think, is controlling time of possession, making sure that your defense is well rested. And on the defensive side of the ball, it's contain Justin Fields. When we look at the stats for the New York Jets, it's a pretty different story, all things considered, when we look at their team statistics more specifically. The Jets have been giving up 30 points a game. So the Cowboys have given up like 33 and a half. They have a total of, sorry, I just want to make sure. They've been not very efficient on third down. They're 31% on third down conversions. They've converted 60% of their fourth downs, but they've gone for it 10 times. They've given up 34.6% of third down conversions to their opponents. And just looking at how they've done, they've so far amassed 578 rushing yards, 5.2 yards per carry. So they're averaging about 144 rushing yards a game. However, they're averaging 130 rushing yards per game for their opponents. And so the way that I'm looking at it is that the Cowboys can definitely generate some offense on this team, but there's that. And also, and I have to mention this, but I know it's probably going to end up resulting in some crazy stuff. They've only thrown one interception all year, and the Jets have not gotten an interception so far this year. Now, going over to the Cowboys side of things, when we talk about their statistics and how they've done so far this particular season as a team, it's much worse on the defensive side of the ball. Defensively, the Dallas Cowboys have given up, I believe it was like 60%. Yeah, sorry. It was 58.1% of their opponents' third down conversions were converted. That is pretty embarrassing. And they've given up, they had their opponents convert 3 out of 4 times on fourth down conversions. The one lone time they didn't was the play in the Giants game where it was the pass by Russell Wilson that was dropped in the red zone. So there's that. But the Cowboys have been very efficient on fourth down, 4 for 6. They're also converting at 42%, which is better than last year for sure. Then looking at their rush attack, Cowboys are averaging about 123 rushing yards per game. They're averaging 123 rushing yards a game given up, but the Cowboys are more efficient. They're averaging 5.1 yards per carry on that side of the ball. And then finally, just looking at what they've been able to do defensively, it's just been a huge mess. And that's what really worries me going into this game is that can the Dallas Cowboys put the Jets in third and longs and be able to cash in on the third and longs? We don't know that. We won't know that until this game is over with. Now, one of the key things I wanted to highlight is how important this game is to Brian Schottenheimer and this coaching staff. Like I kind of alluded to early on, but I wanted to talk about it in a full-on segment. The reason why we have the situation we're in with all the injuries is just unfortunate, right? Like you can't help when injuries happen. I understand that hindsight's 2020. You might call a play that results in an injury. You keep a player in for too long in a game that's lost. But you don't know when a player's going to get hurt. It could be on the first play of the game. So the reason I mention that is because with where we're at in this season and how we're starting to see the vision of what Brian Schottenheimer wants to do offensively, defensively, it's just still out of whack. But the point is that we're starting to see what I think we've been wanting to see. A team that can run the ball effectively, make third down more manageable, make your quarterback not have to make these ridiculous throws every so often, but, seldomly, not all the time, and rely on that to win you games. But this is exactly where we run into these issues because as we've seen this season, and I had to double check this because I was like, hold on, wait a minute, something ain't quite right. The Dallas Cowboys have given up 40, 31, 40, and 20 points so far this season. So for the Cowboys, their goal is to limit the Jets to no more than 20 points or no more than 30 points, excuse me. That's the stepping stone I'm looking for. Because what's very scary with all of this is the fact of the matter being that it looks like there's no signs of this stopping. Now, with respect to what happened in 2020 and 2024, we saw as the season went on with the new defensive coordinators, things kind of evened out. The defense started to play better, and we saw that. The problem, you didn't have your quarterback to supplement that and help you win some games, which would have got you into the postseason. So I look at this game. Dak Prescott's playing fantastic football, regardless of the circumstances. On top of that, your defense just needs to tighten up, and you're able to run the football against the Jets team that hasn't really been able to stop the run. But they've been able to run the ball, mainly because you have Justin Fields back there as a threat. So off the rip, I would say that because the line for the spread is so thin, you're not going to really need to be like, okay, it's not like a field goal versus a touchdown type of situation. I would say that don't be shocked if this game is like, I don't know, like a 19-16 type of game, or if it's a shootout, like a 33-30 type of game. Like, that's where I look at this and I say to myself, okay, the only thing now, because I like what I'm seeing offensively, I don't really need to focus on that as much anymore because I've already seen what's going on. But defensively, I really need to see what Matt Eberflus can do because it's going to be very rare to see a defense, give up 30 to 40 points a game every single game. I don't think that's going to happen. Honest to God. But we don't know. We won't know because, again, it's a long season. But the other thing, too, is that I also wanted to touch up on, because we're a month through the season, where are the Cowboys at in terms of draft pick? And where are the Cowboys in terms of their playoff positioning? As we sit here right now, the Dallas Cowboys hold the 11th overall pick, and that is their own draft pick. And then the Packers have the 22nd overall pick in this upcoming draft class. So those are pretty good positions for those draft picks. But again, we're not at the point of the season where you're just giving up and you're just trying to get the highest draft pick. But at the other side of things, you're not out of the playoffs so far this season. Now, as we take a look, I'm just pulling up the current season, and I apologize and I appreciate your patience as I pull this up. So as we sit here today, if the season were to end today, the Dallas Cowboys would, of course, be on the outside of the playoffs. Like, they would be the 13th seed of this particular season. And that's behind teams like the Commanders, the Bears, who you lost to, so you don't have that tiebreaker, Arizona, who I believe you play later in the year, the Vikings, and the Falcons. Now, the Packers, they're in the playoffs, but so one of the things too is that, and I wanted to talk about this, like, how does the tie work for the Cowboys? So to keep it as simple as possible, tie basically is like a half win, half loss for you. So if you go into the playoff picture, and let's say the Cowboys finished 9-7-1, and there's a team that finished 9-8, the Cowboys would have a better record than that team because they don't have more losses. Now, if they, for example, had a team that was hypothetically in a situation where they had the same amount of losses, of course, or they had more wins, obviously, that's where you're looking at where things will be different. But typically, it's just you have less losses. That's where it helps the Cowboys. It basically is like a game that didn't happen to an extent, but it doesn't help you with a full-on win. it doesn't hurt you with a full-on loss. So this could end up this could help the Cowboys long term, especially against a team like the Packers. And we'll see how things go from there. Because right now the Cowboys are 1-2-1 in conference play. Not good. So they're going to need to start stacking some wins in the conference if they want to make the playoffs. But so far, when we look at the playoff picture, the 7th seed is the 3-2 Rams. And because the Packers tied with us, they are 2-1-1, and they have a game to play, of course. But my point being is that typically with the ties, that works in your favor, like in that instance. So why am I bringing all this up? It's simple for this. If you're a Cowboys fan that's looking for the Cowboys to make the postseason, the tie sucks in the short term, but in the long term, it could end up helping them depending on how the rest of the NFC beats up on one another. And it's not like the Cowboys are completely out of this playoff picture. If they can go into New York and get a win, then they go take on the Panthers, and they can take care of business there and get to 3-2-1, we're having a completely different conversation. At this point, it's up to the Cowboys to get on that track, to get there. But I think a lot of us are just wanting to see, can this Cowboys team actually play cohesive football as opposed to, just hoping to get into the playoffs. We're still a long ways away from that, and it's not over. You're not mathematically eliminated just yet. So with that, I wanted to just take a couple comments, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. I did have to do a shorter show today. The reason I couldn't do it tomorrow is because I will be out in Philadelphia to go see Dodgers versus Phillies. That should be a huge showdown between those two teams. So that's why we're doing the show here today. So let's take a look. So Showtime, what's going on, my man? Trevon tried to tell him to change his scheme by some reports I'm hearing, and I'm here for it because he needs to coach to the strength of his players, not his players just play his schemes. I completely agree. And this was actually one of the reasons why Mike Nolan got canned in 2020 was because of the fact that he was more so you need to play into the scheme, despite what Mike McCarthy said, like the whole opposite of, oh, we want to get good players, not we want the scheme to work with the. So I think that that's going to help. And then you also mentioned, I fear that Justin is going to go off a little bit in the run game if we can't get. Yeah, I agree there. And then finally, Retro Scotty, if Matt Eberflus still plays his soft zone coverage for a majority of the game, he needs to be fired, and he can take his side piece, Jack Sanborn, with him. Well, the problem is that if you do let go of Matt Eberflus, now you have to restart again, and having a 4th defensive coordinator in 4 years isn't really a recipe for success for the Cowboys. I'm not saying he hasn't justified keeping his job just yet, but I think we need to see a full-on picture of a season before we could say firing a guy that's in his first year as a defensive coordinator, especially I think what perplexes me is you can't say that a coach, and I said this a while ago, with Mike Nolan, that defense was horrible, but with the players that you had, you should have been able to take care of business in some of these games. But again, it wasn't a really talented unit when you go back and look at that team. When we talk about where we're at, your defensive line is the strength of your team on the interior, but your edges haven't been playing well. Your linebackers haven't been playing well for sure. And your safeties and corners have been meh. The way that I look at it is, okay, if Siobhan Ravel comes back and he's playing solid, that helps you. If DeMarvion Overshown comes back and he's playing well for you, that helps, because then that pushes guys that don't need to be out on the football field, not be on the football field. So that's where I'm kind of looking at this as well, is that I think that for the Cowboys, if we get these players back and the defense is still pretty bad, we're having a different conversation. But at the same time, it's still a long season, guys. We're just getting into October. For all we know, the Cowboys, they go 3-1 in October, or they go 0-4. But again, I think that when we look at where we're at, it's still a long season. The Cowboys going 1-2-1. I'm not saying they're behind schedule, because technically it would be like 1.1 and 2, it's like we're kind of there, so they're kind of semi on schedule. But I think October is going to tell me a little bit more about this team. That's when you really start seeing the pretenders and the contenders really start to separate. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to cut it for today's show. I do have to get on out of here, but I do appreciate everyone for tuning in again. If you can, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, hit the notification bell, and do all of that. I will catch you guys after the game. I'll see how things go in terms of that. But we'll see how things go again at the end of the day. So, guys, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a blessed rest of your day, and I hope to see you guys on Sunday.